Hey, y'all, it's Amanda, and I am one of the five of five lemons laughing. Today, we have a great episode. We're talking about what happens when words like love, peace, forgiveness roll off the tongue, but feel impossible to live. In this episode, we get real about the moments when spirituality meets everyday struggles. Y'all, we're going to talk about how we walk the talk when it's the last thing we feel like doing.
Mm. Ooh, thanks, Amanda. So basically, we're getting honest about the gap between what we believe and how we actually show up in the world. So it's pretty tough to stay true to our spiritual values when we're in conflict or we have some major issues going on in our lives, or we get stuck in ego. We all stumble. So, we have to ask ourselves, so when have you ever felt out of alignment between your words and your actions? Happens a lot, huh? Or or what spiritual phrases or practices feel easy to say, but they're kind of hard to live up to, right? Yeah. So let's dive in.
Thank you, Drusilla. Can I start? Because I had something just come up just recently. Yeah.
Yes.
So my mother-in-law is visiting, and I keep my Course in Miracles book on my kitchen table because we're doing that's where it is. It's the most convenient. And my mother-in-law picked it up and asked, what is this? And I said, this is, I can't remember exactly what I said to start the conversation. I was like, this is what, when I studied spiritual counseling and the Power of Love ministry, this is kind of what it's based off of. And I said, it's about how thoughts, what we think in our mind gets projected into the world, like every thought, it's about being connected. And I was just explaining the very basic principles of A Course in Miracles. But for some reason, I focused on what's in our mind gets projected into the world, and then healing what's in the mind is helps the world because we're getting rid of that thought pattern. And I mean, just the way the world works, it's hilarious, right? And then I started noticing on my morning walks, I'm arguing with people in my head on my morning walks. So I am talking about this amazing spiritual work, right? And I do it diligently. I try to do it diligently. And so that's me on my spirituality. And in the morning, I'm not walking. I'm walking, but I'm not walking my talk. And it's just super interesting how that just came into clear fruition. That is something that a place for me to work on even more.
Penny, you're muted.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. So Amanda, what shifted for you? Do you think that that had you start, having those arguments in your head with people that aren't even there? Did something change in your life?
It's an old pattern. It's an old thing, right? Like to argue with people that aren't here, right? Like to really focus on like, for example, my husband, like what hasn't he done? Like this needs to happen, right? Like being frustrated because, that's what husbands are for. That's what partners are for. So what is the thing that started happening? Other than like being resistant on doing my meditations, it is, I think with the springtime, I'm feeling an urge to like complete tasks. I'm feeling like a pull to really double down and get things done. I think that's spring energy. And now I'm looking around at all the things my husband and I said that we were going to do when we moved here. So I'm looking around, and instead of seeing all the beautiful things and accomplishments that we've done, I'm looking at all of the things that we said that we were going to do that we haven't done yet. And that is, so that's what's changed. A big pull to complete stuff, to, I have a timeline thank you. And we're off of it. And it's frustrating.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah. And that just is spiraling. And so now I've gotten the habit of arguing with Mike in my head. Now, if something comes up, now I'm arguing with other people that are already there. Right. That's just crazy. That's just crazy making, literally. Thank you for
That
asking.
makes sense though, because
Yeah.
meditation helps to quiet the mind. So, yeah. And so not doing your meditations, I can see it. Yeah. For a very active mind, then that makes sense.
Well, when we were talking earlier, Drusilla, thanks for that. We were talking earlier about A Course in Miracles, and someone said the ego's will. I think it was Penny, and it reminded me of like this episode and why you don't walk your walk and walk your talk. It's literally your ego pulling you out of your spiritual practice for one reason or the other, or mine's always to be right. I feel like I have a second set of rules for my husband, and they're in the back of the book, like hidden. But that's where I really get off track, is with my husband, and and it's all ego, and he's just an easy one for my ego to fight with, because he's not going to leave. I hope not. But so for me, it's definitely ego's will.
So if we talked about what part of the spiritual lessons that would be, Melissa, is it the non-judgment that we preach non-judgment on here all the time, but you're judging your husband nonstop?
Sure. Well, I really think also, when I first started reading A Course in Miracles, I really got into trying to really watch myself with right and wrong, good and bad, all the opposites. And sometimes I just feel like I have this oneness with everyone else but my husband.
You certainly should have the oneness.
Are the same, Melissa.
Right.
My husband even tells me, you don't act this way to your friends, I bet.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. And again, one of my biggest teachers as well. But I feel like I'm self-correcting faster when I'm not walking my talk. And then I feel like I've graduated a little bit in what I was working on to what I am working on now, because now I really do watch my thoughts. So, I can judge myself on my thoughts, not walking my talk, but I try to stay aligned.
So overall, like as a big picture, do you feel like in spiritual integrity, if we want to use a word like that?
Well, it's funny because I had an executive coach for the last year, and one of her big topics was every day we talked, she would say, "Have you been in integrity?" And I would say yes, because it's really not a huge issue. Like that was some of the first stuff that I worked on, like when Amanda started doing her spiritual work, not gossiping, not lying, not little fibbing, and really, again, like walking the talk. So I feel like I do that. I feel like, I stay in integrity. So, I mean, there's always probably more to do, but for the most part, yes. Does that answer your question, Morgan?
Yeah. What about for you, Amanda? Like, how did you feel when you noticed when you had that awareness that you were like completely behaving mentally in a way that was opposite of what you were just kind of preaching to your mother-in-law?
Well, I laughed, right? Even on my walk, because it's just.
Oh, I love that. Good. Tell us why you laughed.
Yeah. and I was just laughing at myself on my walk, right? Once I realized what I was doing, I was about halfway through my walk, and I'm just, and for several days, like I would be about halfway through my walk, and then I would finally like look at a tree and go, "Oh, good morning, tree." Right? Like it just took a lot longer to actually ground down and wind from the mental chatter. So, part of me, there's still a very visceral part that wants to go in guilt. Like part of me wants to wallow for some reason. I want to wallow in it. Like I want to go to bed and just feel guilty and stuff my face and all of those things. And I can see how just funny it is. So both of those things are happening at the same time.
Yeah, that's interesting that we want to punish ourselves.
Yeah.
We
And
get
I
out of
want to,
alignment.
right? Like it feels I'm craving that punishment for some reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting because that's like, to Melissa's point earlier, it's the ego that pulls us out of alignment and back to our old stories or standard operating procedures. And it's also the ego that wants to punish us for getting off track. So it's like, it's getting you coming and going.
Mhm. Yeah, the ego doesn't have a preference of how it gets attention, right? It doesn't even matter. Like you said, Morgan, coming or going doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been grappling with this too this week, even from just doing the course lessons. There was a day where the like reminder for the day was, let me remember I am one with God, at one with all my brothers and myself in everlasting holiness and peace. Beautiful, beautiful. Loved it. Had the reminder on my phone to come back to it over and over and over again. And it just did not feel at one with God at so many points throughout the day when, I was triggered by my husband, like everything. But yeah, thinking like it just goes completely out of my awareness. This reminder was nowhere in my field of awareness when I was triggered. And then, 15 minutes later, the little reminder would bubble up on my phone and I would be like, oh, damn it, completely allowed myself to get uh, thrown off kilter and go into that uh, attack and defend and feeling, whatever, misunderstood or not listened to or not valued or whatever the ego story, whatever one was presenting itself in that moment. But just could not hold on to that oneness in the middle of the trigger. It's like, am I ever going to be able to?
I believe you will, Morgan.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm just going to take that in.
So, can we ask you the same question that you asked Amanda? Um, is there an event? Is there something going on that has shifted for you? Because I know even last week, over the last couple of weeks, even, I would not have, guessed that you would say that today because you were so aligned and blissful and it was so beautiful. And I feel like this is just a contrast for you to springboard. But I won't put words in your mouth.
I don't know. I feel like my experience on this spiritual journey has been, has pretty consistently been this like not being able to stay in the like love bubble that I get in when I do my morning quiet time. Like, I have had so many experiences of like, having a beautiful quiet time, doing my prayer, feeling so connected, and then just immediately getting into a fight with my husband immediately. And like not even being able to stretch it to like the next 5 minutes, much less the next 24 hours. And I think there's like a part in the manual for teachers of A Course in Miracles that addresses that. It's like, as long as you are having this human experience, you can have moments of revelation, but they will not last. They won't, they just won't. So that kind of lets me off the hook. So I don't know if I don't know if I can say that there's anything that shifted from last week to this week. It's more moment by moment. But what has shifted in a more overarching viewpoint, longer view, is similar to what Melissa has said. I'm just much faster at forgiving myself. Like I kind of have an aw shucks moment and then I move on. I don't just like beat myself up over and over and over and over again. Although you mentioned wallowing, Drusilla, I did allow myself, or was it Amanda? I did allow myself to wallow a little bit this week, and like feeling a little bit of self-pity and feeling like a spiritual failure, which I guess would be the opposite of being in spiritual integrity. And I know that that was all just ego. Like, I don't think I'm out of spiritual integrity just because I haven't perfected the spiritual practice. You know what I mean? Like, I have the intention to get back to truth as quickly as I can, to get back to love as quickly as I can, to take responsibility as quickly as I can. So yeah, that was a rather long-winded way of and roundabout way of answering your question.
Well, Morgan, there was a jewel in there that I picked up at the very end, right? It's like just to let ourselves off the hook, right? Because we're living this experience. We wouldn't be here if we weren't here to learn these things. So thank you for saying that. That was a good reminder. And it really is our intention to come back to love or come back to peace or whatever those words are that we use. That is our intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to go back to what you shared about laughing. That's a great lighthearted, easy, quick fix approach too, when we catch ourselves out of alignment with our spiritual values. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just so quick and easy to just, look at what I did there, and then move on. Like, you don't have to scold yourself or shame yourself or whatever.
Thank you. I like to laugh.
Yeah. The whole Course in Miracles says the whole reason for the separation is that we forgot to laugh. So I try to sprinkle laughter in anywhere I can.
Yeah, I think that's why we're attracted to each other. And that's why the podcast is named 5 Lemons Laughing, because that's our goal. It's just to laugh at how ludicrous this whole experiment is or can be.
Yes. Good point. What about you, Penny? Do you have a...
Gosh, I mean, you guys pretty much have summed it up. I have experienced all of those situations. Yeah, and I too feel that I'm recovering a lot faster these days than I have in the past with most everyone. Yeah. Even with my husband, I was going to say, except for my husband, but no, I think I'm even recovering faster with him now too. I realize that part of me that gets triggered by whatever's going on is growing up. She's growing up and she's learning that, when I attack somebody else, I'm really just attacking myself. And so why do that? Why? When we can have peace and joy and harmony instead. So yeah, that's kind of, I don't have anything profound today. No, no. Yeah, that's all I've got.
Well, I did want to ask the question you asked, why is it, do you think, that we attack? What's going on?
Well, for me, I have often thought that I'm not safe. And so when somebody does something that makes me feel unsafe, my first response is to attack or to run away. I do a lot of running also, away from stuff. So I think that's what's going on. So if I have, and it stems back to my, this lifetime that I'm aware of my childhood, where, we weren't really quite sure what could happen next at times. And so I was always looking at, okay, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? What do I need to do to be safe? And then if something would happen, then I would have to figure out what survival tactic do I have to get back to safety again. Whereas now I'm recognizing that a little faster. And I've even started to say, wow, I don't really feel safe right now. And so what do I need to do to make myself feel safe? And I've got a ton of tools in my toolbox. And the biggest one is I'm not there anymore. I'm not that little kid, that teenager, I'm not there anymore. I'm actually a grown-up woman now that has lots of strengths and skills and capacities. And so I that's where I think I'm at.
Mm.
Beautiful, Penny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I hope you wrote some of those down on your post-its.
I did.
You should. That was so nice. That
Mm.
was beautiful.
That's a good question too, Drusilla. Yeah, because like, what is it that keeps us from walking our talk, right? Feeling safe. That's
Yeah.
mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's safety, it's resistance, it's what was it for you, Morgan, if you were going to put it up into one word?
Well, I said the word triggered. It feels like an automatic response, but A Course in Miracles would tell us that there is nothing that we don't have control over, even if it feels like we are out of control in the moment. So, but it feels like a trigger occurs. So it's got to be on some physical level that it's happening, maybe. I don't know.
So a
Not sure.
trigger.
You mentioned that
Fear.
you felt unheard.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How about you, Melissa?
Well, I was going to say fear or love is the bottom line. So
Fear of
fear or love
fear or
would
love.
be the bottom line, I guess. So yeah, all of my triggers are definitely fear-based for some. And even if it's angry at my husband, then it probably is fear of feeling trapped or fear of losing my way or something along those lines.
How about you, Drusilla?
Yeah. I was just thinking about just last night. I got upset at my husband and I just started doing my evening lesson. And after the lesson, I started reading. And I was reading about how, no, I was listening to a podcast and they were saying, did we ever imagine that there's some people on the earth who doesn't know what it feels like to be loved unconditionally?
Mm.
And I'd never thought about that. And just upon thinking about that, I immediately became aware of that I was acting out of fear of not feeling loved.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I was deflated and came to my senses and apologized. And there was nothing to really apologize for because there was, it's always a nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and it just always comes back to self, which is what we're all talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And projecting it outward. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's, it seems almost, it's so counterintuitive, but it is exactly what it is. It's so counterproductive too, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if walking the walk or walking the talk is also just being human, like allowing for not perfect path, not 100% of the time, not all of it. Because I really even think like someone like the Dalai Lama would, he's probably 99.9% walking the path, his talk, but I'm sure he has his moments too, and he just comes back to peace as fast as he can, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's part of being human to take a little side hike.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Side quest.
Yeah.
Mm.
And can I read something? So we've been talking for the last month or two about this book we're reading in our abundance club, or book club, The Parallels of Self. And I'm reading it for the second time because I think there's just so much in it that I love. And I was like, looking for this passage, and I finally found it. It says, "You will not and should not get rid of negative emotions. They are perfect, immaculate navigational tools that allow you to stay in sync with your soul's originally intended path. Getting rid of negative feelings altogether, you would no longer be able to discern what your soul has intended for you and what not." Kind of like the divine alarm clock, I think, alerting you when you're kind of off your path. You would no longer be able to choose between what's really you and what's not, and your life would no longer make sense. So suppressing emotions or wanting to get rid of them is attempting to destroy your beautiful navigational system. You will not only destroy that guiding light, but also your body and mind. For you see, emotion is simply energy, and energy flowing through your body. And energy is neutral.
Mm.
And when the energy flows through a negative belief or action filter, then you perceive that energy as fear. And when the same energy flows through a positive belief, you feel the very same energy as happiness or excitement, which I love. That's, I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. How can positive and negative be the same? And that's the explanation.
Mm.
It's just the energy flowing, same energy flowing through a different realization.
What chapter is that in the book?
I don't know, because this is as big as my book is. It's just on my little phone, and there's no extra details on there.
Is that a Kindle?
It's Kindle, yeah.
Yeah, if you go to, you can click and then go to the chapters.
Let me see. It just says page 127 of,
Okay.
doesn't tell me. Chapter 8.
Thank
Somewhere
you.
in chapter 8, people.
Thank you. That helps.
Yes. Okay.
Melissa, that is a great passage, because that really does put it back in perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels congruent with Abraham Hicks' teachings too, about like the importance of contrast to help us, generate new desires and stuff. So it's all part of the unfolding. It's all perfect.
We shouldn't. So we shouldn't be, and it's to what everybody is saying. So we shouldn't be concerned about feeling the emotions and going through the incongruencies, but just not getting stuck there. Stuck energy is what causes disease and mental illness and all of that. So as long as the energy is flowing, then we're good.
Yeah, good point, Drusilla.
That's a really powerful point.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that help you notice when you've gotten out of alignment?
For me these days, I'm always in awareness. I mean, even when I'm out of it, I'm not in any given hour, there's a moment of awareness for me. So, and I think it's probably the same for you all based on what you just said. It doesn't take long to come back to right mind these days. We have the lessons, we have the communications. It's about the community. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
If I were on this journey without this community and without other communities, with text messages, emails, all the time, I probably would go longer without coming back to my right mind. It doesn't mean coming back to my right mind doesn't mean that I resolve everything when I come back. It's just that I'm aware that I'm feeling this anger or anxiety or whatever it is. And sometimes awareness is curative, depending on how heavy the issue is. Just like last night, it was instantly done. But there's other things that, that I'm carrying that I thought I forgave, for instance. And I'm still carrying some feelings about those things. So, but usually it's if a thought about a person or a thing comes to mind, I will instantly be aware if I'm carrying any feelings that are uncomfortable, that doesn't feel like love, peace, joy, all the positive emotions that I strive to feel. But just as Melissa said, they're just things that they're just kind of roadmaps, right? They're roadmaps to guide the way of, you know, being aligned with the thoughts of God. If I don't have those roadmaps to say, hey, it's just like when you hit the little things on the side of the road, right? To tell you,
Yeah.
yes,
The little bumps.
those, right?
Wake up.
We gotta have them. Wake up. Yeah. So that's that's all they are. And it doesn't feel like it sometimes. It feels a lot worse, but yeah, if we can look at them like that and just don't overcorrect and just kind of, you know, remind ourselves to get back on track. You know, I think that's the most we can do. That's the best we can do.
Yeah, I noticed. Thanks, Drusilla, for that. I noticed that when I am out of alignment and not walking the talk, I have decided that I am like behind schedule. Like I start feeling rushed. And then as soon as I start feeling rushed, like, oh my God, I've got to get to the office, or oh my God, I got to get this out to the I can just get into a tizzy. And I start behaving not so kind. If somebody should walk up to me at that point, man, get out of my way, people, because I got shit to do. And I can't be stopped right now because I've already my ego's already stepped in and said, okay, Penny, you are so bad. You can't even get this done. You can't even get ready to get to work on time. You're going to miss that meeting by 5 minutes. And so, you know, just another bit of evidence that you're not worthy. And so as soon as I start to feel it now, and I feel it like bubbling up from deep within me, and then I go, okay, hold it, Penny. And I stop and I breathe and I say, stop it. So you're going to be 5 minutes late. No big deal. Just call, let them know. They're pretty used to it now. You know, laugh a little bit and then go and say you're sorry to the people that you just ran over.
Stop and breathe. Everything's going to be okay. Laugh, make amends. Love that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty easy to notice when you're out of alignment, when you're triggered in a big way, like I was describing. But what about for you, Amanda, when you were just like on your walk and your mind was kind of meandering to like fake arguments?
I get little dings, like ding, like it's literally like ding. You know, so so that's what happens for me. Like, you know, when I'm in a routine of doing my meditations and all, you know, I get a little ding. Time to go to bed and do your nighttime routine. Lately, I've been going, F you. Not. But
why can't you get the ding to happen before we get triggered?
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So the ding has actually been a little triggering because I'm like so resistant, but it is there. I have just free will. I have been choosing to ignore it for whatever reason. Like, ding. Was that actually all the 100% truth? Mine is into talking about integrity, Melissa. Like if I even hint at any type of falsehood, I get a ding, like a little ding.
Yeah. And that happens because of your intention and your commitment to this. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, that
Isn't it beautiful that I think what it sounds like is that we're actually changing our wiring.
Yeah.
So that we are literally walking in awareness.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And I know you guys were close to wrapping, but Melissa, but I want to bring up one more thing. Melissa, when you were talking about that book, somebody asked me like what it was, why this change, like why have I been so resistant? So in the book Melissa was just talking about, there's an exercise at the very beginning where you kind of visualize yourself in a parallel universe. You kind of visualize like how you want to be. It's called the pure technique. I don't remember all the steps, but I remember going through it and really like putting myself in a whole different frame. So like, not that I have a bad life. And when I was visualizing, like a lot of it was like the life that I'm living now, but it's without going into a big detail. That's when it started, Melissa, whoever asked me that question, when my resistance came up, because I was literally like doubling down on shifting some things, right? Really being open and expansive and like feeling into that vibration. And I think that's the trigger. That was the thing that started bringing up all of these unresolved issues.
And so we can bring it all the way back to the beginning of the ego's will, right?
Yeah.
So when you are doing those practices of stepping into a bigger part of yourself, a bigger reality, the ego's going to fight that.
Yeah.
It's going to hang on for dear life of like, no, you're totally on this earth, living in New Mexico. This is your reality. And it'll fight to keep all of that alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So interesting. Full circle.
Full circle. And then guess what? Acceptance is your answer to everything today.
I'm glad you got to say that at least once on this podcast, Melissa.
Twice. Yeah. Amazing. So that brings me to the first post-it is the ego pulls us out of alignment and back to our old stories.
Yes.
So your ego said, Amanda, forget it, girl. That's dreaming too big. You don't get that. Yeah. It's
well,
amazing.
let me tell you, ego.
And then the ego wants to punish us for being off track, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then we get to ask ourselves, have we been in spiritual integrity today? Gosh, so weird. Yeah. And then the final one is like walking the talk is also it's just being a human experience. It's our human experience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So, another powerful episode from the 5 Lemons Laughing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we said all along, if it's one thing to talk about love and forgiveness and trust, and it's another to live them, especially when life gets messy. So if this episode reminded you, like it reminded us, that we're all human and still learning, take that as a beautiful sign of your awareness, just like what Drusilla was just saying a little bit ago. Walking the talk doesn't mean being perfect. It means being willing. Willingness, just a mustard seed of willingness is all that we need, right? Mm-hmm. And so as we wrap up, here's a gentle reminder. Your spiritual path isn't measured by how eloquently you speak, but by the quiet, courageous choices you make when no one's watching.
Yep.
Yeah, by the quiet, courageous choices you make when no one's watching. So with that, we want to offer up that on our website, 5lemonslaughing.com, 5 spelled out. You can go and take a look at our squeeze. And the squeeze right now, we're featuring content on staying present in hard times, some guided meditations, some journaling prompts. And if you're ever struggling to live your values when emotions rise up, we also have a values podcast that we did, quite a while ago that might help you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Your transformation is our greatest joy, as everyone's transformation, and we can't wait to connect with you again soon. So with that, our next episode is Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Which lemonette is the fairest of all? No, not really. Mirror, mirror on the wall. What are you showing me, mirror? So stay tuned. Tune in next week because we'll be unpacking that. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.